Hello and welcome to this edition of the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. I welcome you to this edition, and it's a quite unique edition where we have a series of things to talk about that are of interest to every Ugandan citizens, but also those people that wish this beautiful country well, good progress and development. But before we get into that, there are a series of things we should really talk about, highlight, and when you look across the world, we had the swearing in of the 47th President of the United States of America, His Excellency Donald Trump. That is something to talk about, but also we know in that same country, the Supreme Court passed a judgment that cemented the banning of TikTok from that country, and the controversy that is around there, but also President Trump coming out to promise that he will bring it back, and we wait to see how that moves and plays out. And continually we also celebrate the ceasefire in Gaza. We've seen a couple of hostages put out, 3 on the side of Israel and tens of them the Palestinians, and we celebrate that development, and we hope we continue to have peace in that particular part of the world. But also in the same line, we saw that prison exchange between the Taliban and the United States of America. Again, it is something to celebrate. It is good to have people reunited with their families, with their nations, and indeed, we hope this again is a step that will create peace in that particular part of the world. So these are some of the stories that putting out headlines across the world in major media platforms, but also in conversations on the streets, in the offices and schools and everywhere, that people talk about things that shape the world. And we hope we continue to have a growing, the progressive and affluent citizenry. Back in the country, we had the Electoral Commission launching the voter registration exercise, and that is one thing that should clear the way for the 2026 general elections, Republic of Uganda, and whoever gets to work in this particular process is sure that they will cast their vote in the coming election. They are sure they can second a candidate, they are sure they can stand for an elective position, and many other things that come along that. And today we discuss how that is happening, the progress, the challenges, the opportunities, but also what can be done to make sure things are moving a little bit, especially at the level of the youth. We know, you both told us, the youth are about 74-75% of the population. Of course, figures being contended until today, but we hope that is close to the truth. And if you are 74%, then certainly you have a role to play in an activity like this one that shapes the future of the country. And as I get into that conversation, I'll first have the panel I have here say hello to you, and later we shall continue with the conversation. I'll start with the gentleman at the extreme end. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Philip, for hosting me once again. To our viewers, I think it is my first time in 2025. It is not too late. I still want to wish you a blessed 2025. I always appreciate the invite that we are here to have digest issues of national importance, above all with line to now is the next election. My name is Masawi Ivan. I'm an engineer by profession. I'm a member of the FDC National Youth League. I'm also an aspiring youth MP for Eastern Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Masawi Ivan, Youth MP Eastern, FDC Youth League. He forgets to talk to us about the Eastern...
I'm the Deputy President of the Eastern Revolutionary Platform.
Thank you so much. Very powerful man here, and we hope your aspirations come to pass, and certainly we wish you all the best. You're welcome. Lady.
All right. Thank you very much, Philip. My name is Melody Nakalanzi. I am a 4th-year student of social work. It is my pleasure to be here to discuss about things that really concern us basically as young people. And it is a pleasure to meet you all very brilliant people, people determined to change the country. Hope for the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nakalanzi Melody, for joining us, and we can't wait to hear what you have to share about this voter registration exercise, and perhaps to learn whether you've already registered or you intend not to participate in the electoral process. Thank you so much. And
yes, thank you very much, Comrade Philip, for inviting me yet again to the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. My name is Ivan Agaba, and I'm a member of the PLU Youth Platform on the Youth Forum, but I also work with the Policy Think Tank, This Lens Africa, and it's a pleasure to be here once again.
thank you so much, Agaba Ivan, Youth Lens Africa, Patriotic League of Uganda. And does that by default put you under NRM?
No, PLU is its own structure and its own organ.
Thank you for the clarity, but we're happy to have you, and we can't wait to hear what you have about this particular exercise. Now, gentlemen, between the 20th of January, that is 2 days ago, and the 10th of February, we're having the voter registration stroke update exercise. That's about 21 days for all Ugandans 18 years and above that are willing, that are interested in taking part in the electoral processes should go and check their details, update them. Those that are not there, register. Those that died, those that are no longer citizens of this country, be taken out of this register, and so many other things. First of all, I want to pick your thoughts about this exercise before we get into the details of what is on ground and what is happening. Masawi, what do you think about this exercise? What have you heard about it, and in any case, have you seen activity in your location?
Thank you, Philip. I first to give a preamble to the exercise. It is established by Section 8. I think voter update is clause 1 of the Electoral Act. That is 1997. In the circle, in the electoral circle, it may be the third stage after demarcation of electoral areas, then display of the electoral areas. I think you come to the National Voters Register. Then the next will be display of the National Register, then nominations. So, legally standing, the law of the country really established it in such a way that it guided for how it should be conducted. We don't expect EC to rise up with measures that are not within the law, because even the person heading EC was a justice.
He still is.
Okay, he is a justice. Okay, sorry about that. So giving that preamble, when you ask me, there are actually around, I think, 3 activities that take place in the National Voters Register. That is registration of new voters. Then there is transfer of voters. For example, I was maybe a student in 2021 at Kyambogo in my final year. By now, this time I'm out of Kyambogo and back to Bududa. I transfer back where I'm going to be in the voting of 2026. Then also update of your voter details. Some people may find that maybe in that time they have had the new NINI number. They have added the name. Some got married, like my sister here. In the next election, she can find she's married. She has added the name. So it is very key to see that you update your voters' details. So basing on that, if you ask me the readiness of the Electoral Commission, a few weeks ago you saw it in Parliament. The biggest disease has not even been the law, but our vices as a country. We have misused the opportunity of decentralization. You will still find that even as the Mr. Museveni is moving around, that marketing, monitoring because in the monitoring and evaluation is doing monitoring of PDM activities now in Busoga. You will see that he comes up and he has served a new constituency. For the 3 days he has been in Busoga, his appetite to create a new constituency can increase, and he comes out when he has left Busoga. He has caused us new sub-counties, new constituencies, in the mismanagement of what? Decentralization. Because decentralization never meant creating more jobs for politicians, right? Decentralization meant satisfying the lower person in terms of the service intake, raising your service levels to the common man. But to us here, decentralization means the majority of MPs, LOC5s, councillors. We lost the I think we lost the ideological concept of what should decentralization be. So coming back to your issue of the register, it is an activity which is still at its germination bed to be maybe given a good evaluation. But just as any young person, I want to encourage all the young people out there, the students in schools. I request schools and universities like Makerere to also have centers. EC to also use schools to cover the exercise, because most of the people while still in school and are already 18 think they are still young. They are not responsible to take up their responsibility. So we call upon EC to use maybe even schools, football grounds, wherever you are, because we don't want them to say they underperformed because the young people were not interested. But it's their mandate to see that they publicize the exercise to see that young people are interested.
Thank you so much, Masawi Ivan, for that melody. You at school, how are your students responding to this particular call by the Electoral Commission to come out and register, update, change location, etc.? How are you people responding to this exercise? Are you even interested?
Okay. Thank you very much, Philip. Now, one thing we first need to understand is what are the problems of youth currently, right? Which youth are actually in school. These are the people that are active in most spaces, are active in politics and most of these things. Because, well, we all understand they're the people that understand the dynamics of society, understand what politics looks like, because, well, they have gone to school and they have some knowledge and exposure. But the problem then is, you asked me about how we are responding as students particularly. Notice that if I am a young person and I'm in my final year, I am supposed to finish school, I think, in 1 year's time. It becomes then the question is, how prepared is society to receive me or give me the right opportunity for me to like expose myself, be able to achieve all the future aspirations that I would want at the end of the day. So for you then to ask a question, how are we responding to this kind of updating the register? I cannot even say it's a 50-50, that people are actually responding, others are not interested. I can tell you that maybe people that are interested in this is about like 20%, particularly for students, 20%. Honestly. Yes. Most of us are not interested in these things. I will not say particularly me, but like on a general. Why? We have understood the dynamics of society, that even at a time when you want to change a guild president, it is sort of influenced by the management or influenced by the country or what the state would dictate or who would be guild president then, right? We have seen a lot of issues like I've been in Makerere and I've seen about 3 guild elections. So we have not had a transition of power where people have said this has actually been a fair election. Even at a time when they introduced online elections, we realize that that has not been fair. People still say there is election rigging. When we go to Chambogo University, those people have been waiting for an election, I think, for about since October. So then, if you cannot even let us have an election, a fair election at the university, at the school level, at the lowest level, then why do we trust a process that would go to the state or to the national level then? It becomes then problematic, and you're like, anyways, I don't think this is for me, and I do not see the reason why I even need to participate in such a thing anyways.
Wow. Thank you, Melody, and such a situation to ponder about, but also get worried about if the young people are thinking that within. I do not know where this country is heading in the activity of having free, fair, credible elections going forward. Agaba, look, from day one, we saw that the activity had a lot of challenges. Some places machines arrived very late, in other places they did not arrive, in other places they got machines that were faulty, in other places the people that were meant to run the machines did not know what to do. How is the situation like where you stay, what you've heard, and are people coming up?
So thank you very much, Philip. Now, I think I would want to begin with this for just the sake of context. That I must admit, and I think I will agree with my colleagues on the table today, that the political mood really still remains so lukewarm for a year that is preceding that.
It is very cold.
Of election. The political temperatures have not arisen, and I think because the protagonists and the antagonists, it seems, are not at play. They are not engaging as yet, and so it is this sort of mood that even activities like these, voter registration, voter register update, take place. Where I live, where I stay, where actually I'm a voter, people don't know about this. I don't know whether the Electoral Commission is doing a good job, but if it is, then it must be a very bad job it's doing. And so I feel like it needs to step up on whatever it is doing to make sure that voter education is done, voter sensitization, because we all know that an election is not an event but a process. And so we will judge the results of the election not by the event in itself, but by the process that has been undertaken. And so I feel that in that regard, the Electoral Commission is doing a bad job.
You see, Agaba, when you talk about this, what I hold here is what the Electoral Commission is calling the Voter Education Handbook. And when you check page 18, they tell us that they have a series of officials involved in this exercise. And when I read through here, they have 4 levels. They have the district returning officers, assistant district returning officers, sub-county and parish supervisors, then update officers. These are 4 levels of staff. When you tell me that your people are not aware, when you tell me that they are doing a very bad job, is it the leadership of the EC? Is it all these levels? Is it the citizens of Uganda?
Well, you could say all, because let's begin with the leadership of the EC. I think a few days back, must have been 16th January, the secretary to the Electoral Commission, I think Mr. I don't remember the name, was indicted together with 4 or 5 other officials over claims of gross mismanagement of funds.
Yes.
And so that alone taints the image of the Electoral Commission in public, because if you have a person to the level of a secretary of the commission engaging themselves in such graft, then how sure are we that they won't engage in graft when it's time to have the election itself? And so I feel that the leadership itself has not been much of an example, or it has not really put the Electoral Commission at the pedestal it should, for it to gain the trust of Ugandans as an institution of integrity. Two is you've talked about the structures as they are.
Mm.
Because, see, structures remain structures on paper until they actually put on ground. And to put structures on ground, you need funding. Now, this is not really a secret. This is a public secret anyway. That Museveni's government usually wants to always stampede the Electoral Commission because it serves the Commission of Resources. And I don't know whether their vote for this financial year has been given to them in full, but over the previous electoral cycles,
Maybe we
so
don't
has
know.
been the case.
So
So as I conclude on that, the structures may exist, they may even have people, or they may even not have people, but the challenge comes from the resource envelope.
wow, the permanent secretary to the Ministry of Finance is releasing the expenditure and revenues for this quarter. I hope they are covering that particular gap for the Electoral Commission.
Electoral Commission was in Parliament last week in front of Honorable Katuntu and his Committee on Legal Affairs. Part of the structures he has mentioned, they are running at low administrative human resource, because the Electoral Commission needs 10.64 billion shillings to employ staff. There are parishes without parish supervisors. There are polling stations, there are districts with acting returning officers. So his point is not only valid but fit for use in such a context that the Electoral Commission submitted its budget for this coming election in 2023.
2.3 trillion shillings.
Yeah, then it was revised to some level. Parliament preferred that they take 1.1 trillion. And really, our election is the most expensive maybe here in Africa currently. Because we vote 3 million leaders. We are going to have 3.3 million leaders, 45 million people.
3.3 million politicians.
Okay, that is, if you take an index of representation index, maybe of 1 to 150,000 people have a leader. For 45 million, if you take 3 million, everyone 50,000 have a leader.
And maybe we need to make a comparison with the doctors and the
No, it
teachers.
doesn't make sense. You will be really not reflect getting 92,000 doctors and divide them. Okay, 2,000 something doctors and who are at master's level and divide them with 45. I don't want you to have a calculator of decimal places and you feel 0.00 is an embarrassment. But I think even when we saw a certain group of Ugandans advocating for electoral reforms, I think as Ugandans we have not had honesty to go into an election where we really want to see something that is called an election.
But let's look at this Electoral Commission. When you look at the commission itself, headed by Justice Simon Byabakama,
he has given you the challenges they are having.
Yes, the financial. But
no, even the people with long hands.
Deep their fingers.
The Tashobias are nowhere. They have been very vocal from nowhere. We saw their side.
Yeah, sure. But when we look at this, these are people that have a bit of experience there. When you talk about Justice Simon Byabakama, he's been there for some time now. This is his second term there. The other commissioners are quite new, all of them. They were appointed just recently, and of course there was a lot of talk about them, some of them having been NRM.
No, not having been. Say,
they are cadres.
Being, they are still. A man like this former MP of Nansan is still NRM, is still NRM member, is even going to run in the structures, yet he pretend he's a public servant.
Like you claim, what kind of delivery should we expect from such a people who Agaba told us we can't trust them with money? You are telling us they have a side in the politics. What kind of delivery should we expect from them as a country?
I think Mr. Agaba put it right. Electoral Commission is appointed by the president.
Yes.
That is one of the reforms we are advocating for, that maybe it is pulled, maybe, but again, to bring, given the judges are also voted by him, parliament, his disciples, I think that is one of the reforms that was needed. But even without that, a credible election, it needs characters, values, and morals. It doesn't need you to go and fish in a highly educated.
Do we have those values in our society?
I think is why we are having a commission having its members interdicted and expelled during the electoral process. That answers you. So coming to your question, that our readiness to the election, first of all, causes issue on the quality of the election we shall have. Whenever you go to an election where people don't, even publicly are still following up for money, the Electoral Commission needs to pay service providers. The reason they claim publicity has not been enough for special local stream media is because the budget for publicity was not out in time what they requested. And the election has to continue, because in January 2026, the president, we shall need to have to vote a new president. Whether Museveni is alive or dead, there is no compromise. The cycle has to do what?
Is it a matter of having the cycle? Or should it be a tangible cycle?
I think we should not blame the cycle. We should blame ourselves, the human beings who are underperforming. Right? Parliament was aware there will be an election, because the MPs, they are also going to be members of the same election. Kasaija is an MP, the Minister of Finance, is aware is going on the ballot.
You see, if you allow me, very important to note, usually the Electoral Commission is holding a series of events, and one of the most recent, they were telling us that the reason they hold the 5-year strategic plan is to allow government to be able to finance this particular process in a phased manner. And they say they break down their activities on a yearly basis such that government is able to raise the 2.3 trillion, divide it in the 5 years, and every year they're able to get an equal share. Why would government that is interested in being in the election to secure an next term refuse to facilitate a process that is going to lead them to that end?
I've told you the government's interest is a sharp election so that it stays in power. It is very stupid to say there is a government with a budget envelope of 57 billion that organizes an election of 2.3 trillion. Is an economist, he can tell you what is that percentage on 57. You remain with 50 what? With 55 trillion. It is the most expensive election in sub-Saharan Africa. For you to spend 2.3 trillion shillings in an election, you can divide that money by all Ugandans, and each one gets around 500,000 on their phone. Is going to the ballot box and receiving 500k. What can you choose? Going there to vote Masawi, you stand from the morning up to 4 p.m. and receiving 500k. You eat 100 for the 5 years, 100 per year. Which one would be a better option?
Maybe we are country.
The latter. The latter was
that
what?
loves very good things, and certainly we are famous.
No, you Philip, in your free time. Philip, in your free time, look at, just try and look at the foolery Mr. Museveni and his government put us through. Take away the identification crisis, the political issue, and just look at the health of the election in terms of evaluating its standard, in terms of evaluating its sustainability, its cost, technological intake. The best they may do, maybe like in COVID, is to see that a voter slip can be printed online, right? That we can't vote online. We spread very free 4 to 4 electoral polling days. Each of the polling days is expensive because you need to collect all those forms. Transport, they need to buy vehicles. Security, they need to employ. Museveni needs to recruit new policemen to man polling stations to beat Ugandans. just look at the kavuyo, and as if we just continued without an election, sometimes you think it would be cheaper. Maybe a new hospital would be built somewhere.
There was a proposal that maybe they should make the term 10 years, such that whenever someone is voted in, then they have their 10 years and they can't go for a second.
Because there is no
but
change.
Certainly, talking about the costs, I had before Mr. Bukenya was taken out of being the PR of the institution. He justified the expenditure saying the reason figures keep going up is because the population of Uganda is growing. They are improving on technology. They have new polling stations.
So every Ugandan deserves the election of 500k of their money.
Well, ideally, maybe just to maybe respond to your issue before my sister here comes in, that it actually should be getting cheaper. If there is inclusion of more technology, it should actually be getting cheaper.
You're using the same service,
especially in terms of time, and the results must be transmitted in real time to the tallying centers, national tallying center. So I feel like it's like an oxymoron. It's running with the hares and chasing with the hounds at the same time.
That was standard.
To say that, yeah, that you have included technology in an election that is still as inefficient as it was in 1996. And maybe to conclude on that issue, that, for example, yesterday, as I think that time when the Justice Byabakama and his commission were meeting with Honorable Abdu Katuntu, he raised an issue that all Ugandans that will not have turned 18 by 20th February this year, 2025, will not be on the final voters register. So you're disenfranchising more than 1 million Ugandans that will have turned 18 years of age by voting time next year if you do not include them in that way. And Honorable Katuntu made a very vehement submission that if you say that we have a national ID registration database, it could as well work as a voters registration database. That by the time we are approaching the election, it would be as simple as uploading.
I should tell you that
the number of Ugandans that would have turned 18 then to become voters at that point of time.
I should tell you that even with a national ID, you still go to a government office, present it, and they ask you, where are you from? What is your tribe? How old are you? With a national ID on table. But suddenly, I want to come back to you, Melody. Look, you mentioned that the people in the universities are not interested and they're looking at the atmosphere, and you told us it is very cold and so on. What can be done to attract these people from their comfort to pick interest in this particular process? Because in the end, this process leads to us getting leaders that will decide on what kind of education they continue having, and indeed what kind of job market will they find in the future.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Now, the most important thing here is that even when we decide to make reforms, it's not that reforms will most likely happen today or tomorrow. We are not going to say that reforms will happen now and people will decide to register by 10th of February, right? The reforms that we are looking at is something to see how better can the education system be. And that is not going to happen in 3 weeks, right? If we say graduates have left the university and they are not getting jobs, you're not going to get for graduates jobs after 3 weeks or after 21 days. That is most likely not going to happen. But those are the reforms that would actually encourage us to say that the government has actually said, that the government has actually put up things that actually favor us. But at a time, anyways, when such things may not happen, there are things that we can do. There are things maybe the government can say, we can engage in this and that, and maybe it works. Number one, the most important thing that young people look at is something to do with civic education. put up spaces, encourage young people to come up and participate in these kinds of activities, in all these kinds of engagements, in any kinds of conferences. Put something that motivates them and says that they can actually benefit from these things. Notice that our interests as young people these days is not about the democracy that the country should have. My interest right now is that, am I able to survive? Because the system is very shitty and we do not even think it can change. So what I care about right now is that, am I able to get lunch? Am I able to sleep? If I'm in Kampala, am I able to move from here to there? Those are the most basic things that we look at. So when we notice that government cannot actually make the big reforms that we think should actually help society at large, then it comes back to them that can they do those small things, go and tell the young people, if it has to be at conference, if it has to be like go to their classes, include it, maybe tell their lecturers to tell them that actually voting is important. Maybe 2 or 3 people already know that voting is important or getting updated in the register is important. Then maybe you can use maybe like Agaba, who already knows that that is important, and then they proceed and tell another person, they tell Philip, they tell Ivan, and then you will most likely maybe get a bigger coverage, because what we thought to be important for us may not be implemented in the shortest time that it can be. So maybe small things like that, importantly engaging them, because youth are actually ready to listen and take up most of these things, but how you approach them is the most important thing. Are you bringing things that excite them? Are you bringing things that they like? Or are you just going to say you're updating your register, you're supposed to be updated in the voters register, and just keep it at that? I don't care if I vote. I don't care if I vote. I don't care if I anything, because if I'm not interested in standing for any position, I do not even see why I'm supposed to be a voter, right? So I just take it as, anyways, let them go. Maybe the president will not change anyway, so why then do I have to vote? Why then do I have to be a voter? Maybe I can find better things to do. So for reasons that the system is so shitty and looks like that, and it makes you look like, I do not care, let it keep the way it is anyways.
Wow. Thank you so much, Melody, and thank you so much, our viewers, for keeping the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. We're heading to a very short break, and we shall be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Youth Roundtable on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa, and on this episode I have Melody Nakalanzi, I have Masawi Ivan, and Agaba Ivan. We are discussing the voter registration exercise that started on the 20th of January all through to 10th of February this year, and we are looking at the merits, the demerits, the challenges, but also how we can improve these processes to make sure this country progresses to levels we want to see them. But before I go back to that conversation, I first want to say happy birthday to a series of individuals. We have many of our staff that have had their birthdays in this beautiful month of January. When you talk about Natasha, you talk about Rita, you talk about Tracy Lynn, and many other people. If you are born in January, we celebrate you at Civic Space TV, and we continue to say, may you live to enjoy the very many years ahead of you. Colleagues, we are back to this conversation. Elections, and when I listened to Melody say that she can make a gauge of 20% of the people at her university interested in going with the update and continuing with the electoral process, but also saying the system, quoting Howard, is shitty. A shitty system, people are not interested. There is a government putting some money in a process. Ivan told us they are not interested in a transparent process. Well, that's okay for them, not for me. Ivan Masawi, come 2026, we are going to have more members of parliament. We are going to have more mayors. We are going to have, as we speak now, we have very many RDCs, very many deputy RDCs, and very many assistant RDCs. And in this country, like you mentioned, we don't have enough electoral officials. We do not have enough teachers. We do not have enough doctors. We do not have enough engineers. And many of those professional people we need. The NRM Manifesto 2021-2026 talks about securing the future of Ugandans. And when we talk the future, we should look at the youth more. What can be done to get the young people, the youth, from where they are, to make sure they participate in this particular exercise and in the end be a voice in the 2026 general elections?
Thank you very much, Philip. You did start the restoration from the break with some kind sweet statements, but I also want to congratulate our sisters like Tracy. I saw she graduated from Makerere. A number of us while still at university who also shared being members of Civic Space and CCG. Yeah, it really made your education to have some bit of productive reflection while in school, to have grown your network. So we congratulate all our graduates from Makerere who are members of the show, and you all viewers who had a graduation, I think, last week. Coming back to your question of the youth intake or youth involvement, as a youth leader and still youth, at least for one last time, it is very key. I think most people misinterpret youth and young people. Young people between 0 to 30 and youth between 18 to 30. Some people want to carry the demographics of young people and use them on youth. And then every time they want to refer to young people from 0 to 30, they will take it as if 78% are between 18 to 30, 8 is 0 to 30 who was what?
78.
78. So I think 18 to 30 around 22. The ones who are 15, they should have grown to around 22% of the national population. In the last election, there was hope, if it was not for COVID, that many young people would participate the 2021 elections, including myself. I participated aggressively. Given what he referred as the temperatures or the momentum of that election, the Honorable Chagulanyi was one person who was enticing very many young people with Nendagamuntu Mission 2021. We are removing a dictator. Mwebereremu. There are a lot of slogans that made young people see value in that election.
Nendagamuntu.
This year, at this very time, the very time last year, this year, at this very juncture, is in Dubai with Kapere at a beach enjoying life. Right? Who was the third? Ingenium Riyad was the third. This time, this year, they have not declared whether it's coming or the party is bringing us a new country. We are yet to. Who was the fourth in that election, if I'm to recall?
Should have been
It had very many
Motu.
candidates that you would know. The first three, it was Norbert Mao.
Norbert Mao. Oh.
So Norbert Mao, who was the fourth in that election, is now the Minister of what?
Justice and
Of Justice.
Constitutional
He's
Affairs.
now organizing the election. The fourth member in the last election is now the Minister organizing the election. You see how our country has made the developments in such a radical style. I don't know whether they alienate the growth of democracy or they build it strong. If we see Mao has become a Minister of Justice, a presidential candidate, number 4 in the last election, is going to be the minister. But I've told you that young people are driven by momentum, digitally, but also society-wise. She brought some measures that she would want to see being implemented. When we make the election more digital update, I'm happy EC has tried to amend. Someone can use their NIN and know their polling station. But so should be registration. I should not just use technology for confirmatory tests. Technology is made to see that so should be what? Registration. When you tell us there is delay of passing money for parish officers, it deprives young people who take off those jobs, right? Because those jobs are short contracts. These are meant for people who have just finished university. When I finished university, I began with an EC job of returning officer, and I made some 1 million per month. But whenever this money is not released, those who would also participate as electoral officers are deprived. They lose interest. What opportunity are they getting? The job aspect is little. Getting jobs as polling agents. What? Not everybody is interested by being a candidate. But the stakeholder analysis, the stakeholder contribution of young people in a country with those demographics put very many young people to be have a lion's share of the population is very key to see that the election rotates among their interests. So I have told you the 2021 election built to a certain momentum, a certain contribution. It had candidates who are all rotating that the country is young. These young people get. This year, the very candidates are in a very different world. Some are not even in the country, yet they were here at the very time last year, mobilizing for the same project. This year, the little we can discuss as young people, they are ever discussing Mohosi's tweets, because Mohosi is using that as his mobilization and marketing tool. So it is his marketing strategy. Even when he puts there something which anyone who is idle, you're his victim. You've been captured. If you give your time to every Toman who is there, how do I wake up and give Mohosi time? That whatever he's talking is some. I know it has national implications to the country, but even Amin campaigned in that style and became president. So if you underestimate him, you can wake up when he's ruling you. So, coming back to the requirements of the young people, key involvement, the interventions made by EC to see that young people are more engaged in the process are still low. Schools, this process should be put at schools. She talked about we know our education is such regressive that we don't prepare our people for output. Someone busy in Makerere thinks he's still a kid, he's still a child of their father and mother, is supposed to go home after school and again sleep at home because he's supposed to first get a job and get salary to be independent. We don't prepare for our graduates to begin thinking like adults while in school, right? In Bukisu, you'll find that close 50% of the A-level students are 18 and above because there people study mature. Someone studies primary repeating P7 for 2-3 times, repeat senior 4.
And so is the case with Western Uganda.
Yeah, if someone reaches senior 6 is 19, 20, that person is supposed to vote. So if you say you register for USCE, you should also put a polling station aside. These people register for voting. The more you will put interventions that attract people to civic responsibility, the more also the exercise will gain credibility. You can look at the voter turn-up in the last election. We attributed some excuses to COVID. But now, without COVID, which excuses shall we give for seeing that the voter turn-up is still low? Is why these exercises, I think, I have never believed that all that can be resolved by electoral reforms.
Thank you. Melody, we are living in the information age. We have internet, we have, you can put out information and it's all over in a second. How can that be leveraged to inspire you and the other people to join on this activity? And in any case, can it inspire you?
Well, I already gave you my stand particularly on that issue. If you say information has been passed. All of us know that they are updating the register for voters and it's for 2026. But the problem then is, how is the process? How is the entire system for updating? If you say you're giving us 21 days, the other day I was watching news and I saw that each parish, I think, has one person, and that person is supposed to move. If today they are in this village, the next day they go to another village.
Some parishes have 14 villages.
Exactly. And others maybe have more. So what then happens? Is everyone going to be covered on that day? Is everyone available on that day? So now the whole problem is about how they have prepared this activity to run. If you say you're giving us 21 days, and the election is supposed to be after a year, which is going to be January 2026, like he told you, some people are going to turn 18 in October. So are they then not supposed to vote? Because apparently if they have updated the register in January, someone who turns 18 in November is not going to be in the register. But if you have said that we have things to do with information moves with technology basically in this era that we live in. Use the technology that you have to have these things work better. If you say that I have registered, I am registering for a national ID, then make it look like when I get an ID, because IDs these days, I think they've lowered it even before you turn 18, you can get an ID. If I'm able to get an ID, then allow me, like, make the system very easy. Some people do not even have the time to sit. If you're registering people from the village, some people are not at the village, they leave at 8 a.m. and come back at 5 p.m. By that time, the person that is supposed to do
supposed to register even at night, update at
exactly.
night.
Some people are not there, but these individuals that maybe government has deployed or something are the people that do not care. My mother was telling me they were registering people at home today, but not today, yesterday, that the person that was doing this registration came at about midday. What then happens if the person comes at midday? They're going to work up, we know government people, they work up to 2 p.m. and go home. What happens then? They've only registered people for only 2-3 hours.
But Melody,
then it becomes...
These government people are actually Ugandans. And
True.
indeed, you are also Ugandan. Meaning, there should be an effort on either sides, from what you call the government people, but also you as a citizen, to make sure this activity is a success, because its success is actually an addition to the progress of this country where you and that person belong.
Well, I've told you someone comes to start doing registration of people at midday or 11 a.m. and they're most likely going to leave at 3 or at 4. How big is a village, Philip? It is big enough that people cannot register at that time. Our parents back home are people that go to the garden and come back at 1. They need to rest. Tell these people that I am going to be available for 2 days for an entire village. It would be that easy. But even well, they have considered that. But like Ivan told you earlier, when you say you're doing national ID registration, that should be enough incentive for you then to say we do not even need to go village per village to do registration. That is enough information for you to say that from the people that we have in our registers, from people that have been recorded as deceased or whatever, we have these people that are actually aged 18 and above, and these are the people that can vote. It would be that easy, other than saying you need now more funds to go and fund these activities. it now becomes the question of how do they then, the people that are actually responsible, how do they plan these activities? And how effective is it going to be? My question is, how many people are going to have updated their even when people have the zeal to go and register, how many are going to have gone to update their to go and update their records and details by that time? And then another thing that I have also noticed that is the problem. No, I'll come in later. I think I've forgotten.
Thank you so much. Agaba, look, the Electoral Commission and indeed government at large seem to be so active on social media. When you check X, when you check Facebook, they are very busy putting out information. The other medium they are using is television and radio. Do Ugandans pick information readily on these particular platforms? Are they effective in delivering this information? Because over time, these have been used, and we know since 2006, voter turnout has been going low. When you look at the percentage in 2006, 11, 16, it keeps reducing. And more shocking, it's the young people that keep running away from these elections. Yet they are the young people that have a lot of presence on social media, on TV, and so on. What's the issue?
You see, I would actually contend with the statistic that you've shared of voter turnout going consistently low over the past electoral cycles. It has actually been going up and down. There have been crests and I think troughs along the cycles. And mainly because, and I think Andrew Mwenda has shared this fact before, that whenever the government is so repressive, especially during campaign time, and there's a crackdown on all opposition politicians and contestants, for some reason, the voter turnout will be so much and in certain areas, especially the urban and peri-urban areas, as was witnessed in the previous election, where we had a very huge turnout in this part of the country, central, and we had a block vote for one of the contestants. And you find that in the previous election, that was 2016, the government was not as repressive, and so very few people turned out. So the point he was trying to make is, the more repressive government is during campaign time, usually voters will turn out more and will vote more. So again, it basically means that whoever pulls the levers of political power in government gets to set the narrative, which eventually has a spillover on the turnout of voters during the final day. Now, about the media of communication. Now, I think it should be known to all of us that Uganda has consistently and over time grown a middle class that is urban, that does not vote or does not turn up to vote, but makes a lot of noise on the social media platforms. Now, if, as you say, that government is so active on the social media platforms, it means that even the people that it gets to reach out to are the urban, peri-urban elite or pseudo-elite that never turn out during election day.
To on X will
So,
not vote.
armchair commentators that post on X and like and retweet their own
Some
posts.
are not in the country.
They like and retweet their own posts. Some are not even in the country.
I
and
always
so
see wasting time.
you get it. You get it. So they have presence there, but eventually that presence never gets to trickle down to the person on the ground that actually gets to vote. And those people get to receive information mainly through radio. And so, because I'm a radio person, for as long as I don't listen to as many adverts on radio by EC urging Ugandans to go and update their details in the voters register, I know the message has not trickled down. And so it's very important for EC to put that in consideration. Now, I think I just wanted to raise an issue on the duration. People, I don't think 3 weeks is time long enough for all of us to go to where we're supposed to vote and update. Personally, I vote in Shema. I don't know whether 3 weeks is a time span enough for me
To look for transport.
go to Shema and update.
No, then another
And
thing
then come
about
back.
that update thing, that is what I was going to talk about that I forgot. They say that when you're going to get updated or to change location of where you're going
Get
to
the
update,
LOC.
you need an LOC letter from your previous voting station. You see how problematic those things are.
So I think
how hard would it be then for you to just get my ID, just log into the system, see where I was voting from, and then change this
It would
things?
be simple if it was electronic.
you get it, and yet they keep investing money because you see, the same scandal that we had during the census of tablets being used by enumerators is the same scandal we are going to have this time around. That you will have a lot of money voted in the budget for people to procure either tablets or I don't know whatever they call them, BMVs, to carry out elections, which BMVs will not be used even on the final day. But someone will have spent that money. So that wastage, the rife wastage of public resources in this country is so alarming. Now, as maybe I conclude, maybe before you barge in, is the issue of voter apathy. You see, if we settle so much on the 3 traditional arms of government, really we will grow voter apathy to heights so unscalable that we may not know. So, what alternatives do we have for the voters or the would-be voters to get access to this information? One would be the fourth estate. The media would be helping us out. 2, but the media also needs money anyway to have that information passed on to the ordinary man down there for them to run those adverts. Maybe 4 would be civil society. You see, spaces like these. You get it? Because how many people get to watch the Youth Roundtable and from what we share actually get to learn something? But there has been a very deliberate, very gradual crackdown on civil society.
Strong one.
Strong one.
Including
We used to have DGF here. DGF used to fund very many implementing partners chapter for I think even Greece. But when DGF was asked to pack its bags and leave, you have most of these civil society players not being able to do these activities that they were previously doing on behalf of government. And so government is so incompetent at its job, but it does not even let those that would have helped it out do that job on their behalf. And so it's that catch-22, that conundrum that we are still in as Ugandans, and we are for a year preceding that of election. I do not see the political temperatures rising. I think Museveni might even enter 75%. He might win by 75%. Because I've never seen that gentleman gain weight like he has over the previous 4 years now coming to 5. Because there is no, like he usually calls it, credible opposition to the NRM. And really, I feel sorry for whoever is going to participate in the election, like my brother there. Because your guess is as good as mine. Kampala will be a war zone. It will be divided up. Each contingent of Kampala having a contingent commander to crack down on protesters. So, really, voter education should be continuous.
So I want to hear from your colleagues. Look,
as I conclude, that voter education should be continuous. It should not be a one-off. And it should not only be the responsibility of the institutions of government, civil society players should be given the leg room to participate and to contribute towards voter sensitization and awareness and civic education. But lastly, the academia. We used to have the Mesa at Makerere, those public universities, those public spaces where we would go and share out information with the Nabuderis and the Yash Tandons and the Mamudanis and the Mazuruis. But we no longer have those because even the leadership within the institutions of higher learning have actually, the leadership there has stifled all sorts of dissent. Makerere is not what it used to be pre-COVID. So I don't want to really spot out names, but what I will say is that the academia, the intelligentsia, you get it, the intelligentsia, that class of society has really disappointed us so much.
Thank you so much. Colleagues,
you see,
and on the same issue,
one. For example, Facebook in Uganda is legally closed according to Mr. Museveni. But you find the full justice we are welcome. They also post on their Facebook account, which they know is legal closed, right? But they are also posting on it about elections.
Most of the government departments do when you.
But now, when you look at the battle between legal and ethical, where does it leave their ethics?
Anyway.
The country, once you've closed down these channels,
I don't think we have a lot of ethics to base on in terms of our politics. But anyway, look, the levels of inefficiency and ineffectiveness in our management of society. We just had a census, and until today, even the people that were at the helm of it,
such an abomination.
That particular exercise, you and I will agree that had a lot of challenges. We are having a voter registration exercise 2 days in, challenges already. We've had very many other exercises in this country that have gone so poorly. A lot of money invested, people with a lot of knowledge, they have studied, they have PhDs, masters, degrees, and they fail to deliver. What is the issue with our delivery at all levels? When you go to KCCA, garbage just killed our people, about 90 of them in Kitezi here last year, 10th August. We have our roads, money is spent, 3 months down the road is damaged. We have a bridge that should have been repaired here at Katonga, money was put out, until today the bridge is still looking at us. What is the challenge with inefficiency in our country? Maybe I should start with you. Where is the problem?
Now, the problem is just simple. It is about corruption and selfishness of these people that are supposed to deliver.
Are you saying someone is so selfish that they think
40 years in the power
they do not need a bridge?
No,
and
it's
ideally
simple.
that bridge takes them home.
It's this simple. They know when I am getting to Nigeria, I do not care about the potholes there because I'm driving in a V8 and I'll most likely not feel them. Who is going to feel them? It is Ivan that is moving in a taxi that its engine is even not working well. They do not care. They know they are living a very good life. There is a time I was watching NBS, I think it is last week. I think it is a former member of parliament for Ruel or something, a certain constituency that side. This man was very comfortable that people that side are actually growing pineapples and someone sells about 5 pineapples at 5,000. I personally sat and looked at this man and I'm like, is this man okay? Are people going to, because I think he intends to come in the next election. I'm like, will people be comfortable having such a person? Because we have individuals that still believe that when I grow maize or beans, it only stops at me consuming what I have. So because these individuals are very corrupt and selfish, and for them they are living a better life, they really do not care, Philip, how you feel.
But
they
see,
do not care what situation you're going through because they are living better.
I want to look at this in a different way. Look, the people that were serving in government in 1987 are different from those that were there probably in 1999, in 2005, 2015, and now 2025. But we still live in a country that does not have silos to reserve food for this country in case of a crisis. We still live in a country where roads are not taken care of. We still live in a country where we have an education that everyone has continuously said is not helping the citizens of this country. But we keep having that education. We live in a country where the health sector is in a very sorry state. And we agree. And people say, yeah, it is in a sorry state. Even the minister will come and tell you the health sector is in a sorry state, but we are not ready to correct it. What kind of selfishness? Maybe we
And
have
she
a new...
answered
This
it, and
I
you
have
told her
answered
to
it
answer
already.
it in another way. You suffocated her to
There,
another way.
there
She
is
doesn't.
no, there is no other way, honestly, Philip. So because the Honorable Minister of Health can access medication in the US or in China, they do not care how Mulago looks like. It is only my mother that is suffering from a certain chronic disease that has to go to Murago because she cannot get money to facilitate her to go outside. It is because me, I am supposed to study at a USCE school somewhere back in my village, and this one son is most probably in an international school, whether in Uganda or somewhere else, and they are getting the best services that they want or the quality of education they want. That's the kind of selfishness they have. If you ask, you also asked about that, what we have had different leaders. See, as a country, we have a virus that keeps transmitting from one individual to another. Notice that the young people like Ivan that we have that are intending to be youth member of parliament are most likely going to be the same people that are going to swindle your money the next day. I am not pinning at him, but this is what is most likely going to happen. That at a time when you go in a system that I quoted as shitty, not even quoted, in a system that is shitty already, it makes it look like you're going to adopt those kinds, because where you grow up from is what determines what you most likely look like. So when Ivan goes in a system that is shitty, it means he's also going to be shitty and will not deliver to the people. They come with the right manifestos, but implementing those manifestos then becomes the problem. We have seen them say, we are securing Uganda's future for 2026. Have you seen the future? We are in 2025, we are voting next year. There is no future at all. What happens then when Ivan becomes youth member of parliament for Eastern Uganda is that he will find a certain member of parliament that has had about 5 terms in office and will tell him this is how you're supposed to work, and he will most likely take up the same advice because he has seen this man be good, he has seen this man succeed. The basic is survival. Are you surviving? Is your family doing okay? And that is what we look at instead of considering things that most likely impact society at the end. As I conclude, the most important thing in this society is to do with civil organizations. If we have things like UN, if we have civic space, if we have all these sorts of organizations coming up and helping people, that's the only way we can survive. But anything to do with government does not work for the local person. If you go to the refugee camps, if we do not have those organizations that are helping people, those people would most likely die. If you come back to ground and see who is helping the girl child, it is civil organization, see FIDA, see all those sorts of organizations. There is nothing like government helping these people. Even at a time when we see that they have put them up there, it all starts from the civil organizations. But what then is the problem? Is that civil organizations have now been like suffocated in one way or another. That there is a lot of bureaucracy, that they do not even give them the chance to actually go out and help these people, because, well, they are government and they have the mandate to tell you that go ahead. But what happens then when civil organizations are also not given the chance? It means they can withdraw. Maybe there are other countries that actually need these kinds of services.
Maybe I should actually give you information that, for example, in the previous year, we've had more than 100 of them denied licenses to operate in this country, and many others have been really crippled either by denying their sponsors licenses to sponsor them, or freezing the accounts of those organizations, arresting their staff, and so many other things are happening around that area.
So that then means that the country is going to stay the way it is, or will even get worse, because most kids that are at school have gone to school because civil organizations have helped them. There is a smallest percentage of people that have studied because government has helped them. If you notice, most of our stories on graduation most likely come because organization A, B, C, D, and D helped me. So if we are having a shitty government and then the civil organization is suffocated to that extent, then it means the country is going to die and we will have the worst maybe in the next 5 or 10 years.
Masawi, just briefly, look, I go to the market often, in a supermarket anywhere, and you find tomatoes from Egypt, you find apples from South Africa, you find onions from Asia, you find in this country, and you have a part of the country that is getting dry every other day. People cannot cultivate. Animals have been dying recently in Western Uganda because why? There is no water. Many funny things happening in the country. Why are we not caring about our country?
First, I'll appreciate my sister. She has elaborated issues very well and very honestly, especially the impact. Spaces like Center for Constitutional Governance is why I told you whenever I see someone who graduated with the roots here, the impact they have in their lives. Coming back to your question, John Maxwell has a book called 15 Laws of Growth. He emphasizes more on laws of environment. He's a leadership coach. Leadership is how me and you lead ourselves in our personal lives. Whereas politics is how we carry our leadership to lead others. So politics, you're dealing with others, you're on behalf of others. But leadership is yours as an individual. The Americans, one of the, if not the greatest group or country on planet Earth, for the past 100 years, had the president yesterday swear in. He has been one of the most controversial in their history, and he was sworn in as the oldest president to swear in at such a juncture. The biggest difference between the Americans and Ugandans is the Americans work to make their people great, whereas for Ugandans we work to make our governments great. The biggest difference is the power of America is in its people, whereas the power of Uganda is in its what? Government.
You see, Masawi, how do we pick out that power? Because whereas you say the power is the other side, it is the Ugandans that are dying.
I was giving a comparison. Is why you saw that in 1986, 1980, after someone losing to Dr. Milton Obote, he was even not the second, because the second was somebody else, but he was the fourth. In an election, he decided to go to the bush, kill people, because he knew the power was not in the people. The power was in the government. He had to deal with. It's why we have never had a peaceful election in Uganda here, that not even a hen dies that was knocked by a motorcycle.
I should remind you that you said something about the fourth in the previous election. Power is in government, therefore is also in government to look for that power.
But I'm telling you of the fourth in the last candidate in 1980, the Katumba of that time, went to the bush and killed the people and came to power.
Please withdraw that.
Okay, he was the last. You can look for the results.
No. Let us
we
play
need to
just
be fair
for not for that person, but for Katumba at least.
Okay, Katumba was also the last. I'm not using it that I'm being unfair. Even me, if I'm the last in my election, you come here and say Masawi was the last. What do you die? What ego do you have that being a last is a crime? At least he tried. Yeah? He tried and failed and used the bush. So because he knew he couldn't win publicly. It is the very kind of setting or very kind of trial all Ugandans have been put into. That they are powerless. My sister has given you a preamble of why we discuss attacking up. It should be us that up is coming to consult, but all our hopes have been tied by the people up. Dr. Muliisa always referred to it as a statement that we are captives. That he always wanted to teach us that we have been captured. Unfortunately for him, he was part of the captives. So who captured us? But we would sometimes fail to know, has he freed himself, or him who came with the capturer and captured us is now also a captive. Up today, as we are here, is Uganda Road Court on cases that incited violence with Mukaku. But he's a former minister of internal affairs. Yes? So, that is what I want to give you, that where is the strength of the country? African countries have chosen to put their strengths in government instead of putting their empowerment in the people. Is why even the cost of your elections that you brought us here to discuss is very expensive. It is not reflecting the people's interests. It is creating an alienation between the classes. There is a class in this country that has nothing to get in an election. They don't care whether Museveni rules for life or not. Then there is a class that even if Museveni got malaria, they would make losses on that day. If Museveni was just spending 3 days in bed, they would be worried, where is our future? Then there is a class that is in between there. They want a proper country for their children and their grandchildren.
See,
right?
Masawi, you see, what you say is very interesting. But I want you to give me a solution. Look, I am uncomfortable every time I enter a supermarket. Garden products, apples, oranges from Kenya, our tourism, and every time I hear politicians talk about the encouraging the rich countries to put some money for climate change and so on, so that they can borrow that money. When are we discussing and how can it be done, empowering our peoples to produce, first, to stop them from dying of hunger, but two, for them to earn from their produce to have a sustainable economy?
I don't want to take you to the Wealth of Nations by Adams, but the principle of production and the consumption, the issue of leverage between consumption and the demand powers, those may be left to people maybe who have better understanding of economics like him. But naturally, the difference between leadership and politics, that if the politics has the right leader, a lot of things can come to equilibrium, including the economic reconciliations and principles. As long as we still have our politics built on fear, built on energy, built on the government over the people, there's government over the people, government interests thrive over the people. Someone who will go and meet General Saleh and is an Egyptian to bring his Irish in the Ugandan market will win. Because he doesn't need to consult, he doesn't need to fear Ugandans, he will only fear General Saleh and his brother who are in power. The key concept, I have told you, Dr. Besigye has wasted a lot of his time preaching to us captivity. But sometimes when the prison is so big, you can be on the other wall face when the priest of the prison is on a different wall face. So the sounds you're hearing from outside the prison may be different. For you at the other wall face of the prison, you may hear the sound that the man will die and things will change. For another person at a different wall face, if you have been in prison, you'll discover that when you sit on the 4 corridors or 4 walls, you hear different sounds from outside. So, depending on the hall the prisoner or the captive is hearing a different voice from outside the prison.
How is this prison going to be opened up? Is it the Syrian way?
I've told you
is
that
it the Egyptian way? Is it the Sudan way?
We never want to go things that what happened to Libya. We never go, but I've told it is a mindset of Africans that our leaders here want things of energy over common sense. They prioritize things of posho, over using carbohydrates because
thank you.
They want the dirty over using clean. Philip, don't always behave as if you poor this country. You flew in here yesterday night. Do you know what is in this
a full-time Ugandan.
People are using everything they want to use energy.
is why you see people are arrested just to keep the setting of the environment to accommodate their interests. The economy is run in a way that you hear that someone needs money to go and supervise Lubowa Hospital, 10 billion. You hear Uganda Airlines made a loss of 274 billion in 2020. You hear only losses. These are their interests. The loss is not that the money never worked, because money, a loss doesn't disappear. He will tell you that. In auditing, it is not that the loss disappears in the wind. It means someone took their money. The Auditor General released the report last week, Mr.
As you
Akol,
conclude.
showing that this government paid 39.8 billion shillings to ghost pensioners. And apart from that, there was also additional money paid as excess in terms of pension and gratuity. Do you think all these things, leadership in every country is very key to steer the country's growth?
Thank you so much. We are very good to paying ghost things. Recently, someone paid ghost loans to ghost companies from the Bank of Uganda, but that's a conversation for another day. Just briefly, Agaba, I want you to speak to the involvement of people in the diaspora and people in the prisons in these electoral processes. As we speak, we don't think about these people. They're not part of the equation, but they're Ugandans, and there are very many of them.
Yes, thank you very much, Philip. Now, get this from me, that never expect a government to legislate itself out of power. That can never happen. Now, the issue of the members in diaspora, Ugandans in diaspora, that actually send a lot of money here and have a very huge stake in our country, because they send billions of dollars in remittances here back home. So you might as well say that they hold a very huge stake in our country, but they never get to participate in the choice of who gets to lead them, even whilst they are in diaspora. The other group that you talked about are the prisoners. Now, for those, I'm not a lawyer. I can, in my very not lawyer way, say that, well, I believe that being a prisoner does not, I don't know the word, being a prisoner does not sort of get off or shed you off the right to participate in the political activities of your country. And it's a reform that has been around for quite some time, I think. And every time it is resurrected, it always suffers a stillbirth. And I don't think that is going to be any different this time round. And so, diaspora and prisoners, I don't see Museveni legislating himself out of power that way. Now,
Just quickly.
please ask.
No.
Well, okay. So to continue is that regarding the issue that you have been asking these two colleagues of mine, that why the state dysfunction. You see, the person of Museveni, I don't know why. For me, I will not talk about the government. I will talk about the person of Museveni. Because because Museveni and the government and the state are inextricably bound. So this is a gentleman that has mastered the art of, one, the three foundations of a core state, that a core state must have the ability to bribe. A core state must have the ability to convince, siasa. But thirdly, a state must also have the ability to coerce through the organs of state violence. And he has annexed all these and put them in his 4 index fingers and a thumb. I don't see anybody, well, whatever they may say, really using the freedom of speech they enjoy, changing that at any point in time. And so, I don't see Uganda. The only way we could maybe help salvage Uganda, because we are not here to lament, but actually suggest solutions, is what Dr. Kizza Besigye has been doing. Conscientization. Mass conscientization. Ugandans are already angry because, I mean, a faulty road, a faulty hospital, faulty schools, dead public service. That alone is enough to give you anger. But you see, that anger must be converted into purposeful political behavior. And that can only be done through mass conscientization of the masses, of the people. Now, if at all conscientization was to be done and there was purposeful political behavior, for example, you would have Ugandans turning out in their numbers to go and update their details at the register. But they are not, because that spark has not been ignited yet. And that
Stop
spark,
that singing. We are the pillars of
you get
tomorrow.
it? And yet they are now in their tomorrow, which is today. So really, for purposeful political behavior, like I said, to happen, I don't know, the tires must hit the tarmac, or there must be that tipping point for Ugandans to wake up.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Unfortunately, our time is very much fast spent, but I'll give 30 seconds to each of you to really call upon Ugandans to go and participate in this activity. It is quite important, and we have a duty to make sure they do so. So very quickly, Masawi, I'll start with you.
Fellow young people outside there in Uganda who make the age of 18 as of 20th January, and the coming days up 10 for Feb. Once you make 18 years, it is mandatory and a civic responsibility by you. Just as you used to sing that we are young men of Uganda and we are the pillars of Uganda, to go and take your civic responsibility of seeing you registered as a voter. See that if you have been a voter before, you update your details to meet the polling station where you will be as of January 2026, so that your voice can be heard, so that your contribution can be part of the contribution towards the change we want to secure in Uganda, so that your contribution can be a push. You can never know, even the system you're fighting may once go away. But once it goes away, will you be having the capacity to be an influence or have influence in terms of voting? Thank you. Go and vote, go and become a voter.
Thank you so much, Melody.
All right, young people, we notice that a right democracy is very important for all of us in society, and for us to have the governments we want, and for us to get the change that we want anyways. So I call upon everyone, as long as you're 18, you're going to make 18 in the next maybe 20 days, in the next 10 days, please turn up, go get your details updated, participate in the electoral process. Maybe the dictator you think is the dictator will most likely leave, and you get the better leader that you want. Maybe you do not only want to remove the president, but for you to also vote your member of parliament, for you to vote the LC5, you also need to have updated your register. So for you to achieve that right of democracy that you claim you're entitled to, kindly go and update your register, participate in the electoral process and everything. Thank you.
Thank you. And
yes, thank you very much, Philip, for inviting us anyway. And I'll be careful with my diction. Fellow full-time Ugandans, I urge you to go out there.
Those who don't need the visa, right?
Yes, as he has said, I urge you to go out there in your various respective electoral areas and update your details on the National Voters Register. It is very important. Let not anybody fleece you of your money telling you that Museveni does not fear elections. He actually does. But you have not informed, you have not encouraged, you have not convinced those that go out to vote to actually vote him out and win him by knockout. Of course, as PLU, for us, we still toe the line of changing things within government, but from within. But again, it's very important that you turn out in your numbers, go and update your details, and make sure that come the final day, you actually go out and vote. Thank you so much.
Agaba Ivan from the Patriotic League of Uganda, thank you so much for your views and for making time to join the conversation. Nakalanzi Melody, thank you so much for your views and for making time for the conversation. And Masawi Ivan from the Eastern Revolutionary Platform, but also aspiring Eastern Uganda Youth MP. Thank you so much for your views and for making time for the conversation. And well, you heard from them. Go out, it is important. Make sure you go and put your details better, good, so that you can participate in the electoral process. Thank you so much, our viewers, for joining the Youth Roundtable today. Thank you so much, the technical team. Thank you so much, Center for Constitutional Governance, and all our partners. And again, we continue to celebrate efforts around the world that are bringing peace everywhere, in Ukraine, in Gaza, in Sudan, in Afghanistan, in Chad, in Mali, and everywhere. We are advocates of peace, and we hope we continue to have this peace. From us, we say good evening, and may you have freedom always.